Get Into Geek. This is episode 72, talking Stargate SG-1. We're all the way up to season 4, episode 6, Window of Opportunity. It is finally here.
Yeah.
We've been teasing it for a little while here on Get Into Geek. If you are joining us for the first time, we've got 3 Stargate SG-1. Holy We're veteran fans, and we got a newbie to the show who's watching all these episodes for the first time, and we're here to talk about it together as a collective group. You know, just a little fun chat between guys. My name is Mitch. Joining me are the guys, including Maddie.
G'day.
Brendan.
Hello.
And Rhys.
Wacko!
All right, let's see what the DVD synopsis has in store for us this week, and then we'll get into Rhys's thoughts of the episode that he's just finally seen for the first time. I know this is one of our favourites. All right. Yeah. After SG-1 visits a strange planet in the middle of a geomagnetic storm, they find themselves repeating the same day over and over again. Stargate SG-1. We're veteran fans, and we got a newbie to the show who's watching all these episodes for the first time, and we're here to talk about it together as a collective group. You know, just a little fun chat between guys. My name is Mitch. Joining me are the guys, including Maddie.
G'day.
Brendan.
Hello.
And Rhys.
Wacko!
All right, let's see what the DVD synopsis has in store for us this week, and then we'll get into Rhys's thoughts of the episode that he's just finally seen for the first time. I know this is one of our favourites. All right. Yeah. After SG-1 visits a strange planet in the middle of a geomagnetic storm, they find themselves repeating the same day over and over again. Stargate SG-1. We're veteran fans, and we got a newbie to the show who's watching all these episodes for the first time, and we're here to talk about it together as a collective group. You know, just a little fun chat between guys. My name is Mitch. Joining me are the guys, including Maddie.
G'day.
Brendan.
Hello.
And Rhys.
Wacko!
All right, let's see what the DVD synopsis has in store for us this week, and then we'll get into Rhys's thoughts of the episode that he's just finally seen for the first time. I know this is one of our favourites. All right. Yeah. After SG-1 visits a strange planet in the middle of a geomagnetic storm, they find themselves repeating the same day over and over again. The team must utilise their accumulated knowledge to stop the time loop before there are disastrous consequences across the universe.
I'm glad they said time loop, because I feel like sometimes they don't let you know what's happening in the episodes, and then sometimes they tell too much. But that wasn't too bad, that one.
Now, just before we get to Rhys's initial thoughts, I just want to set the scene a little bit here. So this episode, obviously, we've been looking forward to for a long time for Rhys to be able to see. It's at a 9.5 rating on IMDb. It's equal first place for the other best episode of the series, which most people, you've probably heard a lot of people say Lost City is their favourite, so it's equal first place.
Right. I thought Heroes would have been up there.
It's close. I think it's 4th or 5th, but so it's tied 9.5. Just underneath that at 9.3 is the 5th race.
Oh, you're doing the list backwards.
And then at 9.1 is Reckoning and the Pegasus Project. So it's definitely a fan favourite.
So I got a few good ones
it
to
makes
come.
all it makes all.
Tell you
these...
what is a good one. Midway. That's a bloody classic. Atlantis. I'm talking about Atlantis.
Atlantis.
Yeah, let's not.
Atlantis.
Let's not.
So given, all the hype...
Look out, guys. Maddie doesn't like Midway.
I don't like to tank SG-1 with Atlantis, especially seasons 4 and 5. So given that we've got all that hype around Window of Opportunity...
Build up.
Yeah.
What did you think?
How did it stand up?
Yeah, I didn't really like it.
You're lying.
Obviously, our hearts just broke.
Yeah, I know.
Like if you weren't kicked out of the room, the three of us would have just left. Like you would have been doing the rest of the show.
Yeah.
On
It's
your
like I
own.
told Rhys, "Oi, check out Lost in Space. I really enjoyed that." And he goes, "Oi, Lost in Space is so fucking bad."
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. I'm like,
Like the concept of Lost in Space was great, but it was just so lame. I just couldn't stand it. I'm just like,
but a lot of Netflix.
Face in my
Obviously, you
hand.
haven't seen the Marvel Netflix, because if you can get through the Marvel Netflix, then Lost in Space is like Oscar winning.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to lower my standards to watch that shit, mate.
Lost in Space is good. I enjoyed it.
I'll give it a crack.
I mean, Rhys, obviously you're not a huge sci-fi fan. You are getting there. But I mean, back in the day, the only thing we had was Babylon 5 at one point.
Oh, not me.
Not anyone, mate.
You just got to lower your expectations sometimes.
I
in
loved
sci-fi.
Starship Troopers.
Good pick.
Yeah.
It's a good,
Like,
solid.
what about Galaxy Quest?
Never seen
Oh,
it.
don't worry about Mitch. Don't worry about Mitch.
It's on my DVR.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I recorded it when it was on TV a few weeks ago.
Well, I feel like that was about a month ago now.
Yeah. Like I said, just a few weeks ago. I don't know how many it was because I haven't cared to watch it yet.
Now that I own it.
The only reason that I
shall-
remember that it was there because it's it's on my
taking
DVR.
up
It's my
space on your
Foxtel
DVR.
IQ box, and I was down to like 1%, and I'm like just going through just deleting shit. I'm like, what has my wife been? All me. And I get the Galaxy Quest from like, I don't know, a month to 2 months ago. I don't know. I'll get there eventually. Well, the thing about, I know I said last week, this was one, I thought this was the episode that I was looking forward to, Window of Opportunity. But I got confused when I read the synopsis because it says SG-1 find themselves repeating the same day. And there's disastrous consequences across the universe. And I'm like, well, that sounds very big, obviously.
Yeah.
Universe, right? And obviously in the episode, which is, I really, we'll talk about it, but really cool, the 12 systems that were being affected. But SG-1 were being, yes, they were, but in my mind, obviously only Teal'c and O'Neill were the ones that were really going through it. They were the only ones who had any memory of it.
In the loop.
Yes, they were in the loop. So that's
aware of it.
when I put it on, I'm like, oh, it is this episode. Like as soon as I saw the serial, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool. This is it, because I had no memory of the planetary stuff. But when the way that it started,
This is
but when
my point of view. What do you think?
Well, just on the serial, this is from the audio commentary with good old Peter DeLuise, one of my favourites.
Notice that the purple Fruit Loop is in the front and the green is in the back.
Ah,
That will match every time. I promise.
Oh, I thought we went with a more chaotic. We were okay with the idea of chaos. That
The chaos theory?
yes, but you spent
I know.
every single time you did that shot.
Yeah.
You would go in
The
there,
Fruit Loops match.
or you yell at
Well,
somebody
well,
to go
I
in
think-
there and the purple Fruit Loop
No, I
isn't
think
in the right
they
place.
started gluing it. I think they glued it. They glued it so it would match.
So O'Neill's
That's good.
holding up
So good.
a teaspoon with glued Fruit Loops on it.
That's
every
why
time
when
we
he
did
drops it
take.
that time, it sticks to the spoon.
as if sci-fi fans would pick up something like that anyway. Please,
Never.
we're,
Mate,
we're
I'm-
forgiving.
Way.
I'm so happy he glued that.
Oh, that's excellent.
That's
so good.
So good.
That's the kind of detail you need right there.
Man, I love this episode. It just had everything, like that new comedy that you've
Yeah.
it kind of reminded me of Ergo, where it's just like a bit loose, but it's just a crack up.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, you got that whole emotional stuff with
Oh yeah.
the family and
Oh, didn't Jack bring the feels like just out of left field?
Yeah.
It was
it
like,
was-
I lost my son.
yeah.
And I was like, holy shit.
Especially after he's
Yeah.
just so loose the whole episode.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love so much about this whole series.
3
as
minutes
well.
early, he was reenacting Ghost by himself. Like, and now he's like, I lost my son.
Yeah.
I know.
Can we just talk about that? When Jackson said to him, "Oh, you could do anything without consequence," and he's like looking around, and then he's like, "Excuse me," I'm like, "He's definitely going to bang Carter," and then it just cuts to him doing pottery, and I'm like, "What the hell, dude? You're wasting your time. You wouldn't even attempt to juggle. You'd just be off banging Carter every day,
There's a great scene.
every day."
Every day.
There's a
And
great
you get better and better, like in Groundhog Day, he gets better at the piano. Like he knows all his spots.
there's
Hey, Carter, you want to go again? You don't. Oh, I can't wait till next loop.
there's a great scene in like the end of season 7 or beginning of season 8, and the similar sort of thing where Jack has to make a choice, and someone brings up the point. They go, "You can do anything you want," and he kind of just stops and goes, "I can do anything I want." And then he's like, "Yep, I'm doing it."
No.
I have a
Just, like,
feeling,
flash forwards to
like
that.
obviously they go when he resigns. Here you go, George. Colonel Way out of uniform to do this, and he kisses her. I feel at that point that's when the loop starts again, and he's smiling at her.
Yeah, because he checks his watch. So he
Yeah.
knows he waited right until the last minute, like right before, because the gate had just opened
Yeah,
and it was starting to frit. So he made sure he did it right at that time where he could make out with Carter, and then
yeah. But
Back.
in my mind, obviously when the loop starts again, he's staring at her. They've banged at least 5 times.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah, because obviously every time the loop restarts, he's back eating Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's just sitting there thinking of the carnal knowledge he knows of Iris.
So, wouldn't that be weird? Like, I've had sex with you so many times, but you don't even know. But it wasn't rape because you agreed to
It
it.
was consensual.
You wanted it.
Yeah, you just don't remember it. Well, it's funny, Rhys, you mentioned the extra comedy, because this is actually the first episode aired that was written by the new team of Joe Malozzi, who is currently spearheading the Stargate Now
Yeah, nice.
revival, and his writing partner Paul Mully. So they actually joined the show at the start of this year as like associate producers or something like that.
When O'Neill was reading that textbook, that was written by
Yes,
Jack.
they put it written by
Oh,
Jack
really?
Malazzi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it?
So this is actually the second episode
Latin
they wrote.
for the novice.
Yeah.
Just passing time.
So this is actually the second episode that they wrote. The first episode they wrote was Scorched Earth, but this one was made and played first. They
Right.
just decided to push Scorched Earth back, I guess, because it needed sets built and all that sort of stuff
Yeah.
for it.
Very,
So,
very cool episode as well.
So this is and now this is the first of 74 episodes across the entire franchise that they write.
Oh, wow.
And I'm pretty sure they said basically from this episode onwards was when they got up to full-blown producers after this episode. Brad Wright loved it so much. It's not the actual first thing they actually wrote for the show, though. So the first thing they wrote for the show wasn't actually an episode. Now, I know you loved a couple of weeks ago Peter DeLuise doing his little song
Yeah.
over the opening credits.
Yeah.
Well, Joe and Paul actually wrote a song, and that's what he was actually parodying when he did it. So we had a couple of requests on the social, so I went forward to the episode Prodigy, where he actually makes Joe and Paul sing the opening credit song that they actually wrote themselves.
Nice.
So I thought, given it's their first episode, I thought it was only fair that we play it.
Oh, nice.
She's a lot
Okay.
smarter than
Now,
Little known
you crank
fact,
up
there
the
are
volume?
actually lyrics.
there are lyrics to the
You're
song.
not going to make us. We can just recite the lyrics.
Crank up
Do
the
kind
volume
of a rap.
so they can
You
sing
may need to
along.
learn these for has Rhys been paying attention. So
You may not get another chance. Come on, do it.
Stargate, it's a great big world. With a great big swirl and you step inside to another world. We're talking Stargate, it's a crazy trip. You can go quite far and you don't need a car or even a ship. It's getting tricky here. There's Colonel O'Neill and Carter and Daniel and Teal'c. Look out for that gold.
I love that. Every time they do it.
That was the first thing we wrote when we came to Stargate, and I know Robert and Brad were infinitely pleased. What have you guys?
first 2 months on staff.
What have you guys been working on? We've got this.
That's brilliant.
Brilliant.
So yeah, you might need to memorize those. We may quiz you for the next has Rhys been paying attention.
Good. That's awesome.
Now, while researching this show again, I was on YouTube and looking at different videos. Now, I found one of Michael Shanks.
YouTube or RedTube?
Bit of both.
Michael Shanks and his wife Lexa Doig, and also one of the guys from Atlantis, Paul McGillian, were at a con. So this is audio from Michael Shanks' opinion about Window of Opportunity.
Uh-oh. I'm always frightened when Brendan
Jackson
brings his own audio.
No, this is just straight con stuff.
Go ahead.
Howdy, guys. So last year, Chris Judge was sitting where you guys are right now, and I had the opportunity. I had the opportunity to ask him this question. I'd like to see your guys' thoughts on this as well. So, my favorite episode of all 3 series was Window of Opportunity,
Fan favorite.
where Teal'c and the Colonel get caught in that time loop and keep going back and forth, and there's
Lexa
there's
Doig moves to
shenanigans,
Shanks and
it's great.
goes, which
So
episode was
for
that?
Michael specifically,
6 years
I'd like
before
to
she
know
joined
what
the show.
Your
Yeah.
favorite part of that particular episode was, and then for all 3 of you, just for the entire series, I'd like to know what your favorite episode, either as an actor or as a fan, is.
I unfortunately, because Daniel had to kind of be the straight man in that scenario, I unfortunately didn't get to participate in any of the shenaniganery that Rick and Chris did. They got to do, and a lot of the stuff was made up, like the juggling, the golf balls and all that stuff, the riding the bike down the hallway, the pottery, even the golf scene and all that. None of that was originally scripted. It's the blessing that happens, and it's actually turns out to be way better than most people would think at the time, is when an episode runs short, meaning we've shot everything, we put it all in the edit room, and we're still like 3 minutes short of our 44-minute delivery time. They go, oh crap, we have to make some stuff up. So they did this great montage of all this stuff happening. And it was funnier than the rest of the episode. So We call those, happy accidents that happen. But I didn't get to participate. I had to bear witness to it and keep a, stiff upper lip as the boys juggled and ruined all my carefully thought out exposition. So do I have a favorite part of it? Yeah, when it was over.
Classic Shanksy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that, really all the best stuff comes from the fact that they were short.
Yeah.
And they just had to vamp. Apparently there was a conversation regarding the golf scene because the actual Stargate prop cost them $100,000 to make.
Wow.
Which is obviously why Origins had their version.
Right in the Cooper.
Straight from Bunnings.
just balsa wood and bit of
Spray paint.
molding and spray paint. So they actually had the conversation. They're like, do we really want these, fit guys smashing golf balls that are $100,000 star prop, or do we just CGI golf ball? So they went sort of back and forward and back and forward and back and forward, and then there's conflicting reports on whether they were CG or whether they were.
Well, I hope that if you're a CG guy, you'd be nicer to Teal'c because he sliced that mother.
Yeah, he did. Eh?
Well, yeah.
Big time.
In the audio commentary, they mentioned that, and they said, "Oh, do we make it go straighter, or do we just leave the slice?" And then they went, "Oh no, we'll leave the slice in."
I just love the idea, the ridiculous nature that they only get to see that shot for 10 meters, and even Anil goes, "Ooh, nice!" He's just he loves the shot. It's you can't see how it ended up, mate. Just the idea, and the fact that they're wearing golf clothing, they went to the trouble to leave the base.
That's the wrong base.
They've convinced Teal'c.
Convinced Teal'c. It's got him a green polo, some three-quarter pants, and a golfing hat. And I'm he doesn't know why he has to wear such stupid shit.
And then in terms of what you're saying about good shot, really, they're just like playing darts with golf balls.
Yeah.
Because they only know where it hits in the event horizon.
Yeah.
And they've just got to assume it's good.
There's that good line where he goes, "How far away is that planet?" Oh, 1 billion miles or whatever.
Yeah.
That's got to be a record.
But he said it like he wasn't sure. It's got to be some kind of record. Of course.
All these guys, surely Apophis has done a similar thing.
To another planet. And then bloody Hammond says, "Oni, what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm in the middle of my backswing."
In the middle of my backswing.
You talk to me in the middle of my backswing.
It was so good, man. So they played golf. He did the pottery, the juggling, the bike.
Yeah.
That
Banging Carter.
Yeah.
Well, in my mind, he was banging Carter. He resigned 20 times.
Yeah.
What?
Banged Carter.
Surely they're not his casual clothes.
The beanie, definitely. The beanies is.
Beanie and the orange skivvy.
Wu-Tang
shirt.
Yeah.
Just stolen that from the change rooms.
But yeah, there's obviously a Groundhog Day reference in there.
And that's what I love about these sort of show, how it's all fun and games, and especially with this because there was so much comedy in there. But at the end, where they're like, "How many times have you done this?" He's like, "I've stopped counting. I don't know." And then Carter references said, "Look, the Tok'ra said they've been trying to contact us for 3 months, but we don't know when they started, and we don't know how long ago they gave up. So it's almost impossible to tell exactly how many times we've been doing this." I'm like, that's horrifying.
I did read though. Someone, I thought Brennan might have jumped on it because it was all about math. We know how much Brennan loves his math.
Oh yeah.
Someone actually theorized that if you know that there was at least 3 months and they were 10-hour loops, well, you can obviously work out how many loops there were. But then they also said, well, theoretically, you could actually go back to the last time you knew you dialed out successfully outside of the loop. And then actually you could work your way forward. Like if you had someone else's outside calendar, you could sync up your calendar to their calendar and actually work it out. So it's funny that Carter was just like, "We'll never know."
Yeah, it was I'm like, say you don't know right now, because then you can find out, once the episode's finished. But
she's the type of geek. She's going to want to find out.
Yeah, she will.
Did you guys ever see that Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise?
Oh God,
yeah. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome, and that was sort of hinted at as well that he's possibly relived that day thousands of times.
Yeah.
It was there wasn't any comedy.
Yeah, well, even
in that
near the
whatsoever.
end, they skipped so many times that you're seeing this scene for the first time, but he's already been there 100 times.
Yeah. I really like the way they did that.
Yeah.
You lived it with him for the first half, and the second half it was you were catching up to him, and it's it's fun, but it's horrifying. At the
if
same
you
time.
do want to hear a little bit more about the Groundhog Day references, allow me to enlighten you.
Oh God.
Oh, why do you say it like that?
Wheel in the piano, boys.
Gather around the fire. It's time for another reading with high pitch.
Oh, the fire's so toasty and warm. I love it.
Got
It's a really soft rug too. Like if you do that whole
My-
Die Hard thing where
My
you
shoes
get
are
your
off.
toes.
Yeah. Oh, scrunching the toes.
Wow.
I've got some mallows here if you want some.
Ooh. I've got some massage oils if anyone's.
I'm so keen.
Is time still money with this piano guy?
Yeah, we got it. Okay. Writer Joe Melosi says, it was extremely difficult to come up with something unique, something that hadn't already been seen on Star Trek or any of the other sci-fi shows, says Mully.
Close.
We did think about pitching it seriously at one stage, but that notion didn't last long. Our background is in comedy writing, and so it was natural for us to resort to type. Confirming that Malozzi and Mully did originally pitch it as a more serious story, executive producer Brad Wright admits, I wasn't at all thrilled at first. I immediately thought that what we didn't want to do was a reprise of Cause and Effect, which is one of my favourite Star Trek The Next Generation episodes. But Joe and Paul said, no, we don't want to rip off Star Trek, we want to rip off Groundhog Day. I thought that was hilarious and allowed them to go for it.
Yeah, because the Star Trek one was before Groundhog Day.
Yeah, that was back in the late 80s, early 90s, I believe.
Yeah. Groundhog Day was 93. Oh, the piano guy's making the most
Wrap it
of
up,
his money.
Graham. Thanks, buddy. Thanks,
See you
buddy.
next week.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
But it is kind of like a sci-fi. Like every show who has that will do a time loop.
You love
on.
time loop.
Yeah,
Like
Everyone loves
Groundhog
time
Day.
loop. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
sci-fi isn't. There's not infinity amount of ideas going around, so
That's right.
surely some of them are going to be reused.
Yeah, and it's so relatable because everyone in everyone everywhere has thought at some point in their life, what if I had a chance to do that day over?
Yeah.
You know, and yes, sometimes you go to the more serious aspects, and then sometimes you go to the fun and go, oh jeez, imagine if I could do that all over again.
Yeah.
You know, how many times haven't you thought, geez, I'd love to go back to and just start reliving my life from 10 years old, knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
God, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we've all thought that at some point or another. So
And that was something at the end when they brought it in, and old mate Malachi's trying to get back to his wife, and when O'Neill did go deep on that about his son, I think that's obviously the other end of it. You know, yes, we wish we could go back and relive, but then you'd have to go through all the bad things as well. And I like that
like
dynamic.
maths. Class,
It's
science
still-
projects.
Nah, it'd
science
still be
stuff.
good. You just
But-
wouldn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Trust me, I can.
I didn't give a shit the first
I'd
time.
probably give more of a shit.
I can see my life until at least my early 30s. I don't need algebra.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
But what I really like to, not even to make it different, because it's not necessarily a new idea. I don't know. I haven't seen all the times this sort of thing's been done. But when I watch these repetition type storylines, it's like, okay, so is that happening everywhere? Like like obviously Groundhog Day is that's the entire world. Like the whole, we revolve around a calendar.
Yeah,
Does that
that's
happen in the
what I
whole
was
world? But what about the universe? Is the entire universe all coming down to Bill Murray waking up the same time each day on Groundhog Day every year? Or with Edge of Tomorrow sort of thing. Like,
Well,
why
I
is
feel
his
like-
experience affecting everywhere? This, I like to actually specify it. It's coming from this system, and it's close enough to these other 12 systems that it's affecting them. But the likes of the Tok'ra, who are further away, they're not being affected by shit. Like, I'm like, that just a little element they didn't really need to expand on, just to add a bit of flavour, and I loved that.
Like when you talk about the 12 gates, it's still a huge chunk of space, and it always makes me wonder. Obviously, those 12 planets are still circulating, still rotating.
yeah, they're
in
moving with
orbit,
the rest of the Milky Way.
but the times,
But then you sort of think, okay, well, is that bubble moving with the Milky Way so that they're still in their right place within, in relation to all the other planets?
Yeah.
It's just there's that little bubble circling them where the
time of day.
planet
guess-
is moving back to the right point, so the sun is in the same spot, and they're really going.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a mind when you sort of start thinking about it. You're like, oh, okay, and
Because they said that that planet that they're at, P4X639, was originally colonized by ancients.
yes,
And what I was wondering is, why did they pick those 12 planets?
they didn't pick the 12 planets. I think it was just they picked that planet because of the solar activity.
yeah. Well, what they said is the device didn't work.
It didn't work
So
properly.
the idea being that they needed the solar activity that comes once every 50 years or whatever to activate whatever they were doing.
Right.
they wanted to go back, and this is great. I was going to talk about this. This basically really ties into the overall ancient story arc that goes through the series, in that there was some kind of massive extinction level event, some kind of cataclysm, and Daniel's like, we'll never know what that is, and moves on. Yeah. And they wanted to go back in time to fix it, but then the machine doesn't work, and it only took them back in time like those 10 hours or whatever it was, and stuck them in this loop, and that's when they sort of abandoned the idea.
Right, but where does the 12 planets come into it? If they were going to go back in time, however many years, would all those planets go back in time? Did they mean for that to happen, or was that a byproduct of the storm?
I think because the machine, they wanted to turn the entire universe back, or they wanted to just travel back in time to a certain point. But obviously the machine, maybe there wasn't enough power from what they were expecting, so it only really affected this little bubble of these 12 Stargates. Right. So it didn't have the effect that they wanted.
I'm thinking this kind of just now as we speak. You know how they go back in 1969 because there is a huge flare. They travel through the wormhole, whereas this, they don't. It's like a subspace thing. So I'm thinking initially maybe what did Peter DeLuise call it? The gopher bopper?
Yeah.
That thing? The pedestal?
The whack-a-mole.
Yeah. That initially, like if they set a setting, then walk through the gate, they might come out in the past or wherever.
Yeah. It still would be...
I don't know.
Interesting if they should probably go and investigate those 12 planets, because perhaps one of those 12 planets is like an ancient homeworld or something like that, that where this extinction thing started. So potentially there could be a lot of tech there or something like that. So it's interesting. That's one thing that they don't sort of go back and investigate.
And did that, because Carter's saying, it's at least 3 months, maybe more. Does that mean that the ancients were there 6 months ago, creating? Or was that just old mate?
That was
Malachi.
hundreds of thousands of millions of years ago, whatever it was. It's just the first loop that we saw when they were hit by that beam at the start. That was 3 months ago. From the start of this episode to the end of this episode,
that's 3 months.
3 months had passed in our time.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that the loop had been going on before that. It's just that O'Neill and Teal'c didn't know about it.
No, Malachi activated it. By activating the machine,
when the big light
he started
happened,
the loop.
Yeah, when the three of them were touching the pedestal, that's the only reason they're in the loop.
Yeah, so that's why Daniel and Carter couldn't remember each loop, because they weren't struck with that energy.
I understand that, but I'm thinking, so that was obviously, the storm happens every 50 years.
Yeah.
So they knew, was SG-12 went over and
a couple
took
of
all
weeks
the
earlier.
photos.
Yeah, and they
so that
met
was
Malachi.
Right, so that was the first time that Malachi tried to go back in time.
Yeah,
right.
he'd found this thing.
He just figured it out.
Yeah, he figured it out.
You're a skilled linguist, Dr. Jackson.
The ancients...
I know.
The ancients hadn't been there in tens of thousands of years. Yeah.
So are they... Correct me, because I'm trying to think of what the explanation was behind the idea that SG-12 could come back from where they were. Or it was SG... Yeah, the return with the injured guy. But they couldn't otherwise dial out to...
Because they were within those 12 planets.
Because they were within the 12 planets. That's what I mean. Like, are they... Were we lucky in that sense that they were on that planet when it was activated? Because otherwise they would have just been back at the SGC trying to dial... But we would have been able to get elsewhere, just not within the 12...
No, we can't. No. We could only travel to those.
Because remember,
planets.
we tried to stop the loop. One of the ideas early on to stop the loop is we tried to dial out, and we couldn't dial out.
Couldn't get a lock
to the Tok'ra.
So we would have only been able to dial those 12.
Yeah.
So you think of all the possible combinations. Like, had they not have been there when it was activated, we would have been affected by it, and they would have been back at the SGC just like trying to dial Tok'ra Homeworld, Tolwyn, and going, "What the fuck isn't this working?" Like, we would have been stuck in an endless loop until this bloke decided, "I don't want to do this anymore."
If Teal'c and Jack didn't touch the pedestal.
Yeah.
Or if he had waited for him to leave before he activated it.
Yeah,
that's right, because the solar storm was reaching its peak.
I found that interesting too, that they never actually stated definitively to the characters why Jack and Teal'c were the only ones to remember. It was up to the audience to know that they were just there, wrestling with him or whatever. Because they just kept asking the questions. Fair enough for them to ask. But surely after 3 months, then going, okay, look, what do you remember? What happened? What did we do that, Carter and Daniel didn't do? But they never actually said, this is what happened to you two. So even still, at the end of all those loops, they just, once they walked back through successfully having that bloke turn it off, Hammond and co just kind of had to just assume that they were like, okay, I guess you guys are telling the truth. But they could have otherwise not believed him. It's just like, well, you seem to know some shit, but it could just be some kind of phenomenon. And you've went to the right planet.
You read the report?
Yeah.
That's what I liked, the fact that they had two people, Teal'c
Going
and
through it.
O'Neill saying, no, that's correct. We can
Yeah.
back each other up here.
It
This isn't a
wasn't-
prank.
It
It
would
wasn't
wrap it
the
up
whole,
easier.
It wasn't
Yeah.
the whole team trying to convince Hammond.
Yeah.
It was just the two of them, and the two that it shouldn't have been.
Yeah,
Because
or it
it's
wasn't
like-
just one trying to convince the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if it was going to be two, I'm glad it was them. Because to think about it, if it was Carter and Daniel, well, Carter knows the tech and Daniel reads ancient, so they
Yeah.
would have figured it out
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And definitely would have been playing golf through the
Yeah.
through the wormhole or anything like that. I did have a couple of bits just because I love introducing Rhys to Peter DeLuise and his amazing commentaries.
Yeah, I love
So there's
hearing
just
it.
a couple little bits here regarding he's noticed a pattern whenever Carter tries to figure something out.
So now we have hypotheses being hypotheses being posed by Amanda. She is trying to figure out, as she is wont to do in these episodes, what happens, what has happened, what could have happened, and so many of her lines you'll find if you watch this show consistently start with theoretically fill in the blank.
Yes, exactly.
Or
There was
according to quantum physics, theoretically, Yes.
So there was that one, and then just for some funsies, he thought he'd give Teal'c a bit of shit, literally.
There's the thermometer. I wanted to go rectal, but they said no. And in fact, I'm not so sure that thermometer wasn't a rectal thermometer.
It wasn't.
But the Jaffa
Well, that's true. They don't have rectums, I don't think.
rectum, it nearly killed him.
I just stuff like that is like I just feel like you could set Peter DeLuise in this room with us, and
Yeah.
he'd just fit in so well.
Yeah.
I'd hope to think so.
We'd fanboy.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Behavior after having no consequences. How hard would it be the following day
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
when you're
When
doing
problem's
something
fixed.
like you slap Carter on the ass? She goes, "What are you doing?" You're like, "Oh,
That's
yeah."
right.
Sorry.
Mate, I have enough trouble when
can't
I've
do
been
that.
driving on the highway for an hour and then I pull
Yeah.
off into side streets and I'm like, I can't go 100 Ks anymore. I keep thinking, what if a cop pulls me over? I'm like, sorry, mate, I was literally
just
just on
got
the
off the-
freeway.
Yeah.
I've got to at least have a 10 or 15 minute buffer to slow the down. But yeah, 3 months of
true.
getting to do whatever I wanted to, man.
Like,
That,
you could literally anything you wanted,
yeah.
and you'd get used to that behavior. I think.
Yeah,
So-
for like 3 months of. And
Anyway.
I guess they would have. I mean, they were working hard for a while. They were like learning ancient and doing all that sort of stuff. But you've got to assume they must have taken like a week off to
And-
just.
Yeah. And I know that's...
There's 3 months.
Yeah, that's a long
Yeah.
time.
I'm taking this loop off.
Yeah.
And I know that we keep bringing it up, but like, from what we see, even in the 3 months of continuous looping, when they can do whatever they want, Teal'c still doesn't get around to see Earth.
Yeah.
He's still stuck on the fucking base.
Yeah, getting hit in the face with a door every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what's more annoying for the four of us is starting the loop, getting asked a question by Daniel that you don't know what it is, or getting smacked in the face with a door.
Yeah.
Every single time
Yeah.
you start
Yeah,
the
that's
loop
way
over,
worse.
it's like,
I love the way that they edited that together or how they wrote it, but like he's like, you're not the only one to face discomfort or whatever, and it just immediately cut to that, and it didn't cut back. It wasn't like he was, it wasn't like a Family Guy thing, like,
Yeah.
set up,
Yeah.
payoff clip, come
Yeah.
back to the scene. And then we only needed to refer to it once more to show this is where it took him. This is how frustrated he got, where he just door jammed that bitch in the face.
I might see if we can film it and put it up on the socials or something. But at the end of every episode, we play on the next Stargate SG-1. So last week we played the one for this episode, and obviously there's a little sort of montage of clips and stuff going through it. And the shot where Teal'c is kind of pushing that soldier back through the door.
Yeah.
They like rapid play that like 3 or 4 times in a row, like it's a Benny Hill sketch or something like that. And I'm just
Bang
like,
his head.
oh, that's an odd sketch, but it's pretty good.
You'd definitely go out and break laws, wouldn't you? If you had 3 months.
Absolutely, you would.
Robbing banks and
Why would I'm just going to move past it? Why would you rob a bank though? Because it's like, well, the next day after 10 hours, that money's gone and back in the
Just to see
bank.
if he
yeah,
could.
but you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for the thrill of it. One time I robbed a bank. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, got away with it.
Yeah.
But surely so that's that learned behavior. Like, you imagine if you're like, I'm going to go back and kill all those bullies from high school, all those people that annoy me, and you go and seek out every day, like, by the end of it, you're a psychopath because you've become
Yeah.
conditioned to murder or something. Like,
Well, did they touch on the fact? I don't think they did. I guess because it was more of a fun episode. what happened if one of them died during a loop?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Well, surely.
Because I just thought when you said sort of robbing a bank, it's like, well, if you get shot while you're robbing the bank or something like that and you die.
Yeah.
But the world loops, so you're back.
Yeah, you'd be back.
Haven't you
But
seen
you're
Groundhog Day, mate?
Well, it just depends on the beam of energy they were hit with. It's like, well, if that's no longer active, yeah, who knows?
Yeah, true.
Interesting.
But I mean, and then there's one, the Supernatural does one called The Mystery Spot in
That's
season
one.
3.
Sorry, I just thought every time someone mentioned another sci-fi show, we were supposed to say that's one.
No,
So.
no.
No, that's not the rule?
No.
Oh,
Supernatural.
okay. All right. Sorry, I was mistaken.
Yeah,
That's all good.
that's all right.
Robert Cooper.
It happens.
Yeah,
but
that's mine, obviously.
I forgot we're living in a fascist society.
But every
How could you
loop,
forget that?
every
We
loop,
remind you every day.
every loop, one character dies, and that's the end of the loop when they die.
Yeah,
So
it was a good app back when
Dig it.
back when Supernatural was good.
I've not seen Supernatural.
That's our
we
next
must
podcast.
remedy that.
Just do the first 5 seasons. That's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can stop after that.
Yeah, it got better again in season 7. I want to say 7 and 8. Did you watch past that?
No, based on your recommendation, I started doing that, and then that's when they pulled it off Netflix. Like I was like
Right.
midway through season
Yeah,
8, so
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, "F
Right.
you guys, I'm going home." So I haven't been back.
Yeah, the Leviathan series was terrible.
Yeah, they're doing
But-
season 11 or 12 on TV at the
I
moment.
saw
and
12
it's
on
terrible.
12's on Blu-ray.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
They might
Just
be
going,
further
"That's
along. I think
shit."
11 play it. They're pretty good. I think playing it not day and date with the states, but
Well, I think we get the
whatever.
same
I don't know
week.
what
We get the
they're on.
same
I don't know
week,
whether they're in 13 or 14 at the moment. Whatever they're in, they've greenlit another
Yeah.
one.
It's about
Well,
8
Amanda
seasons too
Tapping's
many.
directing. She tweets about she's directing Supernatural.
Yeah, she was in it a few seasons ago.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
played an angel.
And
okay.
they'll have their 300th episode soon. It's fucking ludicrous.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
they
It is
need
very
to-
cool.
they
Yeah.
Need to wrap that shit up.
Have you
Yeah,
watched Travelers yet?
I watched season 1.
No. I've been watching Imposters, and I finished Imposters, and I thought I can start Travelers, and then Imposters season 2 came out, so I'm like, damn it!
I cannot start yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, highly recommend it.
Superman did one. Lois and Clark. They did a time loop one. There's a Christmas episode, I believe.
Christmas every day?
Yeah, and it was only
That's
Superman.
literally Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
That would actually probably suck.
Groundhog
You
Day
get the
is
same presents every
One of the
It's
greatest.
actually really dark. Like,
Yeah,
when you go back and,
so
like, I
dark.
watched it maybe a month or 2 ago.
He commits suicide like at least 10 times.
Yeah. I'm like, I watched this as a kid, and I remember it being funny.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, there's like a 15, 20 minute period in there.
the guy stepped in the puddle.
Yeah. Oh, he punched
Ned
him.
Ryerson?
Yeah.
You remember his name?
But then it gets on,
I
and
watched it on YouTube. the other day.
he's helping homeless people, and he's
Yeah,
killing
yeah, yeah.
himself,
Yeah.
and he's killing himself again,
In
and
jail.
he's killing himself. Like, this is really dark.
He robbed a bank.
Oh,
Or a-
yeah.
or a-
Oh, the money guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
Great movie though.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
Source Code. Have you guys seen
Yeah,
that? That's
yeah.
another one. Another looper. Speaking of loops.
Oh. 12 Monkeys, yeah.
No, I'm glad Brendan can list off all these things that are similar to it, and
Oh, he doesn't crap on about him every
and not
episode,
get in
mate.
trouble. I mean, he's been going for a couple of minutes here about all these different
You're right, different.
things.
Yeah,
Difference
they're all
really
different.
key.
It's not one thing.
Wow.
Be surprised
and
if he's
over
ever
again.
brought up source code or before now or after this.
Yeah.
But,
You weren't so right. I would punch you right now. You an articulate bastard. Oh, those sound
also,
effects.
my sound effects are now working. So.
The only thing I wanted to mention was when they go back after Jack says, you know, the whole sun bit, he rummages through the bag. And
What?
then
and finds
he
the
pulls out the phallic
the photo
picture.
album.
I was just like, and then he opens it and it's a picture of his wife.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just thinking, like, he pulls it out and he goes, "What about this?" And he can't open it. And he goes, "Oh, that's not the picture.
Yeah. Peter DeLuise
That's
does.
my dildo."
Peter DeLuise. I was gonna grab the audio, but I just had so much audio here, I had to sort of leave it on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, Peter DeLuise talks about how
It's an unfortunate shape prop.
Unfortunate shape prop because it looks so phallic. Because when the concept art was pitched to them, it was in the open position.
Right.
And they didn't realize when it closed, it looks like a.
Well, it was weird when they put. They go, what about this? Yes, that's my wife. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Sorry,
Your
All right,
wife
man.
is a piece of
Betsy?
technology.
because that's
We'll
the
go around.
thing now.
We'll
is
go
you
around back
can-
for 10 minutes.
Like women, they can get their husband's ashes and put it into a dildo now. Like that's a thing
Oh,
you can actually do.
What?
I have heard of that.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say I have done
I
that.
have one of those.
It's my ex-husband.
Evolution. Hey, this is why we need technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put your dead husband in you.
Did get it up, yeah.
Get your dead husband up here.
Yeah. Did anyone else notice? I think Hammond's got a new red phone. It's like a touch button one now.
Ooh.
It looks all fancy. It's like a
Oh, they lost the Adam West one.
yeah. It's like a flat square one with all these. It's like it's only supposed to call the president, but it's got all these like preset buttons down the side.
Wouldn't it be a hot dial?
Yeah,
Pick it up and it rings straight away.
that's
Yeah.
what you'd think. But
Well, imagine if you knocked it off, like knocked the handle
Oh,
off, and the
Jesus.
president's like, "Hello,
hello,
hello, George,
Hello?
hey there."
my God, they've
he's
been
just-
taken over.
Yeah, and he's like turned the self-destruct on and just having a quick session in the corner.
Initiate wildfire.
George! Oh, no, that Walter went in there and changed the speed dial. The president's now 2, Walter's 1. And so he goes to call the president. He's like, hello, sir. Oh,
There
no,
was,
it's amazing that you've called. I'm glad we can talk about these
What can
things.
I help you with?
Yeah, what can I help you with?
There was another new bit of tech as well. I think this is the first appearance of it. Is the rear screen projector in the briefing room. So you saw there when Carter was sort of giving her little speech, and there's that little thing. That's actually like Hammond's window. So that's where the star map normally is.
Yeah, right.
So now what they do is they put a little screen down and they rear project it from the background. So
Oh,
the
right.
idea being it looks like a TV just drops down from is what
Yeah.
look they're going for. But yeah, it's just a little rear
I
screen
always get
projector.
confused when they do that because it looks like a completely different room.
Right, because all the interactive light and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. I think that's why they did it, just so it was something a little bit different.
Yeah.
And the touch screen.
Oh, it wasn't that
Makes it
dodgy. That was
that's-
so
we were talking about that a
dodgy.
few weeks ago.
Yeah.
How they touched the monitor,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Jack or Daniel was touching this one. I'm going, come on,
Yeah.
yeah.
that never happened.
Technology.
And then there's this one here I might put up on socials. You know how I like to have a bit of a keen eye, and I showed us in Crystal Skull when you see sort of Teal'c's head
Yeah.
sort of pass through the stone. This one I think is pretty forgivable, but if you have a look really closely here, as they're coming back to the planet with the technology on it, the last time, Carter's foot kind of slides through the Stargate rather than through the event horizon. So just I zoom in on it and just watch Carter's foot just ever so slightly.
Oops.
Yeah, just slides through. So obviously that wasn't a practical gate. That was
No.
all CG. Must have been easier for them.
Didn't
but,
who did that? James Titchener?
yeah.
Is he special effects advisor? I think he said, "Oh, I'd like to go back and redo that."
Yeah, in the
Obviously,
Yeah.
do her foot anyway.
yeah.
Nah, good app. All in all,
Really good.
bloody good. Definitely go back and watch that
You're
one.
going to lock it in the top 7 for this
in
season?
the rewatch.
You reckon?
Well, we'll
Yes.
see what comes
I mean, we're only in the first 6 of this of this season
up. Might
so
be
far.
in my middle section.
Oh!
I wouldn't have thought so.
All right, that's episode 72. Better not be. Get it again.
Hold that for entity. Wait until the entity, mate, and then you'll know what your top is.
Oh,
I'm
wait
joking.
till
Joking,
Space Race
obviously.
or Grace. They're terrible.
Oh,
episodes.
you're cracking jokes.
No, I'm not.
All right, well, next week we've got to look forward to Watergate, and that'll be on the next Stargate SG-1.
On the next Stargate SG-1.
New voice.
That Siberia?
A startling
No.
discovery
The Russians have a Stargate?
turns into a Russian-U.S. operation.
There are 47 people down there who may need our help.
You don't have to tell me what's at stake here.
And a crisis of global proportions.
They're all dead.
The answers
They're all
lie in
dead,
an ancient
Picard.
underwater world.
Good luck.
But the deeper the mystery gets,
Holy frozen bad guys.
So does
they
O'Neill.
get into trouble.
Go. It's too late for him!
Now it's more than a game of sink or swim. It's do or die. Richard Dean Anderson stars on the next Stargate SG-1.
Dang,
That
the
shit
Russians
sounds
have a
hectic.
Stargate.
Do they?
Where
finish-
did they get that from?
Oh, who
Do they
knows?
wrap that up? The whole next week on Stargate SG-1.
Hmm?
When do they wrap that up? Because I can't remember them continuing with that.
Oh, those little bits.
Yeah.
I think it's for this season.
And that's it.
Just
right?
on the DVDs. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, looking forward to that.
They're very
Looking
90s.
forward to when that finishes.
No, Russian Stargate. That's
Yes.
So check back next Stargate Sunday for episode 73, Watergate. In the meantime, you want to check out all of our old episodes. Check your favourite podcasting app. Search Get Into Gate, a Stargate podcast. Find us on the socials, like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is that you do on any of them. Get Into Gate, a Stargate podcast on there. Myself, Mitch_Lewis on Twitter and Instagram. Matty!
At High Pitcher Matty on Instagram and Twitter.
Brendan.
At the Bren Gibson on Insta and that.
And I'm at the Flying Gibson.
Of course, you can support the show and join the show as part of our patreon.com/Get Into Gate page. You can check it all out there, see if you want to get involved. And if you do, welcome aboard. We appreciate everyone that's jumping on board the last couple of weeks. It really helps us keep the show going, getting bigger and better as we look towards the rest of season 4.
We'll give you creative control.
Yes. And I'd say that's dangerous, but
look
what platform we're setting for you. Look at what we're setting. Also, we are part of Get Into Geek, our other podcast we have out there. A pretty big movie coming out this week, Deadpool 2. It only gets bigger.
Hyped for
It
this.
only gets bigger. Is that what it's called?
There is a tagline out there. It feels bigger.
good.
I saw him on a bus, and he's got his wingspan. He's like measuring something. It's like it feels bigger. It only gets bigger. I don't know. It's all happening. But Deadpool 2 comes out. We will be doing a couple of reviews over in our Get Into Geek page if you'd like to like and subscribe there for the podcasting and the social pages as well. Until then, we'll catch you back next week for Watergate. Watergate and Gate. Bye.
Bye.
Does Zdrovia.
GetIntoGeek.com.